Welcome to Flipping Tables, where we bring all of our religious thinking to Jesus, who flips the table for his upside-down kingdom. I'm Julie Sexton, and I'll be your host. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 36. This is the 5th conversation in this Water with Lemon series. We are going back to the beginning of Flipping Tables, when there were just 3 of us. Twila and Kimberly, my original co-hosts, are finally in the same room at the table with me. It's pretty exciting. It's been a long time since the 3 of us have been together for an episode. And when I started this end of summer series, I knew that I needed to try to get both of them back to the table at the same time so that we could sort of maybe reintroduce ourselves and just do a little check-in and recalibrate together. So that's what we're doing at the table today. And we want to remind our listeners how it started and where we're going next. So girls, it's good to be at the table with you.
It's good to be back.
Yes, we're happy to be here.
I mean, I think you came in at the end of John, Twila.
Yep.
When we finished an episode with John, that series. And Kimberly, this is your first time in the Water with Lemon series.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, all right, girls, what's going on in your lives?
Oh, man. All the things. There's so many things going on.
Right.
Kids are back to school. For me, work has been a really exciting season of growth and lots of events and things like that, and projects that I'm working on that I'm really enjoying. And I mean, how long do you want me to go on? There's so much I could say. What about you, Kimberly?
Good. What's going on with you?
Oh, well, beginning of school year. I have all 3 kids in school now, and I'm trying to figure out what I should be doing because, there's always a million things to do, but I really need to focus on 1 or 2 things. We're starting evening activities, so that just complicates things. Yeah. It's also good,
And you've got me at your house every Wednesday night with a bunch of women.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
All the women plus 1 3-year-old.
And he was kind of banned last night, Twila. He didn't get to come. He was already in his car seat.
Clark. Yes. He loves to participate.
He loves
I bet he does.
He loves book club, and he loves to try to talk to Miss Julie.
Oh, I bet. I love that kid.
He calls me, how does he say it?
Julie.
Julie. And
so cute.
Sweetie pie,
Yes.
honey.
I don't know
Where did he get that?
I don't know. I don't know where he picked it up, but he says like, okay, honey, okay,
He's a flirt.
sweetie pie. And like this could get you in trouble.
Yeah.
It's also flattering, but also maybe offensive to some people. I don't know, but he's a lot.
I love it.
So I passed Andrew in the garage. The boys were already in the car. They were headed out to dinner last night. And I always feel bad for Andrew because I think Andrew wants to be in book club.
Oh, he's
I bet he does.
He's
such
back
an
and he's like,
extrovert.
so what did you guys talk about?
Yeah,
and I
he's so
told him,
social.
I was like, you don't have to leave.
Yeah, he
But
doesn't.
last week you said like, I was so hungry. And I said, there was tons of food up here. I'm not responsible for making you eat. So why don't you guys just go eat during book club tonight so that there's no question on whether
Right.
you were fed.
Because we're eating at book club.
Oh, yeah.
We have a charcuterie spread every week, and it's been...
It's kind of turning into potluck more than charcuterie, which I appreciate.
which I'm okay
Yeah.
with, too.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I mean, there have been some sandwiches and some sliders. And
Yes. All the desserts.
Y'all, it's lunchtime, please.
Sorry.
I know.
Sorry.
I know. Yeah, somehow we always end up talking about
do.
food.
We do love to eat, and it's coffee week. And Kimberly, you brought us cold brew.
I did.
Carrot cake cold brew, and it's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
Real good.
Yeah, shout out to Leestown Coffee.
I think it's making us probably hungry.
Yeah.
We're all going to be
And
ready.
High
for it.
energy.
High energy, ready to go. So the way we started this podcast journey was you and me on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And us having these really important conversations about polarizing topics, the topics that you don't talk about with everybody. And we didn't always agree on things, but we always were able to talk, and we helped each other. And I just, it made me think about you being like a sounding board to me. And I was like,
I'm flattered.
a sounding board, like where did that even come from? Where does this expression, do you guys know where it came from?
No, what?
It's really crazy, but I looked it up. It's fun fact. The term sounding board originally referred to a wooden canopy that was placed over the church pulpit during the Renaissance era. When the preacher gave their sermon, their voice would bounce off the sounding board and get amplified across the church. Is that not cool or what?
That's so cool.
And
Look at that.
so I love that. So it became the phrase that we say when we're bouncing ideas off of one another.
And it's amplifying your voice and these things that you feel like you want to share. So look at that.
I'm like,
Your podcast is the sounding board.
it is the sounding board
I love
that's
it.
amplifying and sending out. Like, I love it. I thought it was so cool. I knew that you guys would love that, because that's really what we've all been
Yeah.
for each other. Someone asked me today if I knew you very well, and I said, only for about 10 years, she and I have been doing life very closely together over cups of coffee. Isn't that funny?
That's random.
Yeah, it was random. It's like, I don't know how well you know Kim Daniels. And I'm like, well, I don't think you know her well enough to call her Kim.
Oh, honey. Go, sweetie pie.
Go, sweetie pie.
Maybe you got that from me.
I don't think we should have drank coffee. We're a little hyped up. So that's how we started.
Yeah.
So I want to give you both the opportunity to kind of reintroduce yourself to our listeners, because I am intent on getting both of you back at the table a lot during the next series that we're going to be doing, because it's good. It's going to be good.
I'm excited for it.
So, Twila, what do you want our listeners to know about you?
Oh, gosh. I feel like I've lived a million lives, so I'll just tell you about the most current life I'm living.
Yeah.
So I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Currently, I'm working as a writer and content developer. That's what I do for a paycheck. And I love it, because once upon a time, little Twila wanted to be a journalist. So I'm not a journalist, but I get to use lots of words and interview people for things for work, and it's fun, and it satisfies those cravings inside. I'm really passionate about youth.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a middle schooler, but even before he was a middle schooler, I loved middle school girls. And I'm just really excited about their generation. So anything that I can do to pour into them, I want to. In general, I love developing people. Like, throughout my professional career, that's always been the thing that was most fun. And so now to get to spiritually develop people and be a part of their journey is really exciting. I'm married to the sexiest husband alive.
We've heard that.
And and I'm a Jesus follower. So there's Twila.
You follow the table flipper.
I do.
What about you, Kimberly?
Well, I am not as outspoken as Twila. I would describe myself as an introvert.
We would describe you that way too.
To the most extreme degree, I think. But I'm a mom. I'm a wife. To an extrovert.
Several of them.
Oh,
One
yes.
introvert and two very... Even Andrew said to me this week, he sent me a Snapchat of Luke at hockey practice.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, loving on the little Luke, because I love Luke. And he said, I was never that cool. Your kids are cool. They're fun.
They're pretty cool. I like them a lot most of the time. But what else? I work part-time as a nurse. I take care of kids with cancer, blood disorders. I love doing that about once a week. And I love to run and be outside. And I work on the podcast with Julie.
Yeah. You have a full life. I actually saw our calendar last night because we were shuffling some stuff around, and it was really full. It was really, really full. I don't even want to see your calendar.
No.
To see it written down,
Kind of
you're like,
ugly.
oh, hello.
Oh, I'm like, are those palpitations in my chest? Wow, gosh, you girls got a lot going on. So that's probably why we don't get together much to do an episode, the three of us. But, I would describe myself as an ordinary Bible teacher. I just follow the table flipper, and I've been doing that since 2002. It took me a little while to get to calling Jesus the table flipper. But the funny thing is when I look back over my life, he was literally training me to follow him as the table flipper. And he does something in my heart that makes me brave and courageous. And I think that that's what Jesus is supposed to do for us. He's just got my heart. I love him. And we had a couple of fun episodes in this series where we got to talk to Luke, my little buddy, and we got to talk to Kimberly's Aunt Alva, which were both really fun episodes. I loved getting ready to, inspiring people hopefully to pray for teachers and schools and students. And clearly, as the school year has started, we know that we need a lot of prayers for our students and teachers and administrators. But talk to me, Kimberly, about what that meant to see your son and your aunt. And I think you learned some things about your aunt on the podcast.
I did. Well, the back to school episode, I feel like every time an episode comes out, I say, this is my favorite episode so far. But it was so special. I loved listening to Susan and Amy. They had such great insights, and it just gave us such encouragement to know that there are praying teachers in the school. I mean, things we already knew, but to hear them so specifically talk about it, it was just really, really encouraging. And Luke, I mean, I teared up when I listened to him. He has always been a deep thinker. He's always been very spiritual, and just to see how seriously he takes his faith in the Lord, and that he's brave. I mean, that's very brave to talk about it. I mean, he's always been a fan of the podcast, but like he doesn't even realize how far-reaching this is and how people were encouraged by him. I was just really proud of him. And then Alva, Aunt Alva was always the fun aunt growing up, but she always lived like 9 hours away from us. So I would just hear things about her and talk to her on the phone every once in a while, but it's just been really special to live close to her because we never had family close to us. Like grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles. It was always at least a 4-hour drive to visit. So it's just been really special to have my grandmother and Alva live close, and my family has, well, that side of the family, like at our family reunions, we always sing hymns. There are like lots of just, a legacy of faith. And we listen to stories from my grandmother, call her Grammy. Like that's a given, but to hear specifically about Alva, and I didn't realize that she didn't go to seminary until she was in her 40s.
I know, it was huge.
I'm not even 40 yet. So to think like I could do a whole new thing that God has planned for me.
I just got chills. Did you just get chills?
Like I have no idea what God might call me to do in this next season of my life.
That's awesome.
And like, who knows? And that's exciting for me, and just listening to her talk about how there's a place for everybody. I've said several times, like, it's a challenge for me to actually be on the podcast. I love talking to you.
Yeah.
But, I kind of get lost in a big group, and sometimes it feels like the podcast might be a big group. But I don't know, like, that when God calls you to do something, he equips you for it. And there's purpose in everything that he does. And it just brought that to light for me and encouraged me. So, and just the fact that she's part of my family, it just brought a lot of happiness.
Yeah, I mean, she was amazing. Her story was amazing. To have been a missionary in the Philippines, to have pastored churches, to go to seminary when you're 40, and she's, a teacher and a nurse. Like, she's
done it all.
I mean, wow, nothing. I'm like, you are a table flipper. And the thing was you guys just got to hear a snippet of the conversation. She probably stayed at my table for like 2 more hours, and we just talked and talked and talked, and it was so uplifting to me, so encouraging and inspiring. And I was just so thankful, to God that in every generation, God has used women powerfully. I mean, she's a boomer, right? And
that's awesome.
That's huge. we see more millennials having gone to seminary, maybe some Gen Xers. I know a lot of women in ministry going late in life. So Kimberly, it could even still be in your future. Like, I came really close to auditing a class at Asbury Seminary this fall. But I knew it wasn't the right time, but I'm not sure that it's off the table for in the future. I would really like to take some classes that Craig Keener teaches, and I've heard him on other podcasts, and my friend Deanna has had classes under him, and she's like, he would love to have you. He is for the girls.
Love that.
So cool. So cool. So it's like within grasp. So Twila, let's go back way to the beginning of our relationship. When in 2016, during the summer, you and I studied Revelation together.
Yes.
And talk to me about the difference between 2016 Julie and Twila to 2024 Julie and Twila, because we were texting during the debate the other night.
Yeah.
And you texted something like 2016 Julie and Twila would not believe all the tables that the table flipper has flipped in our lives.
It's almost embarrassing. When
we were scared. We were scared in 2016.
It's embarrassing when I look. I remember there was a night of prayer at church pre-2016 election. And I was like, I have to be there. I have to go intercede for our country. And I'm not saying we don't intercede for our country, that we don't pray for our country and our leaders. But I was there pleading with God for a election outcome because I was afraid and thought that was the only way we would be okay.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
I remember that.
And when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm embarrassed by that, And again, not that we should not be praying for elections and our country and our leaders and, but my motivation is embarrassing when I think back to that period of time.
I mean, we had a lot of fear. And I remember having a conversation with a woman that I was really close to. We had done ministry together, and I looked at her and I said, I'm kind of scared if so-and-so gets elected. And she had this facial expression that changed. And I knew in that moment that she was silently telling me that was who she was going to vote for. And I was scared of that. But it shifted something in me, because I had such love and respect for this woman that I thought, if she could vote for that person,
yeah,
and I know she is a godly woman, what am I afraid of?
And what am I missing? Like,
and what's wrong with
what
my
am I
faith?
not thinking about?
What's wrong with my faith?
Yeah.
That's what I was asking myself. And it was literally a table flip.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't have changed who I voted for, but the wheels started turning in my head.
Yes. Same. I would say the same thing. I still would probably have voted the same way, but I just look back and I'm like, my motivations were just so wrong.
Well, they were rooted a lot more in fear.
Yeah.
And Kimberly, you've been at the table with me for a long time, and you've kind of watched the evolution of this. We've been doing, like, we've talked through, these same things. And the three of us, we're not always on the same page about it, but it doesn't do anything to hinder our relationship and our friendship.
Right.
Not at all.
And I know confidently that all three of us are no longer one issue voters.
Right.
That we are womb to the tomb girls.
Yeah.
We believe in life, every life.
Yeah.
That every life is the Imago Dei. We're in the image of God, and every life matters, and everyone, has the right to to flourish in life. And of course, we know that as Christ followers, that only happens with following Jesus. Like the rulers and the authorities of this world, they're not going to do it for us. And there's definitely a dark set of rulers and authorities in the spiritual realm that are warring against us.
Oh, for sure.
And so we should be prayerful. But when I was listening to the debate, I was just like, oh my goodness, this one side wants me to fear immigrants and refugees and undocumented people, and it's just fear Russia, fear Korea, fear everybody. Just be afraid of everybody.
Yeah.
Like I'm the only
It's
one.
all gonna get you.
I'm the only one who can help you. Like nothing would have happened like bad.
Right.
And I'm just like, excuse me?
Right.
You are not God.
Yeah.
You are not on the throne. You are not in the throne room. I don't know how often you even enter the throne room in prayer, because like
Yeah.
you couldn't say those things if you spent time with Jesus.
Yeah.
And then the other side I felt was kind of like tapping into those fears that women have
Yeah.
and just trying to make me afraid. And my daughter's afraid, and everybody's daughter's afraid. And I'm like, you can't do this. You just can't do this. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard to listen to.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just I'm so thankful that you're my sounding boards, that I have you girls. And then I'm a sounding board to you.
Absolutely.
Because we know where we're anchored. And we're not afraid. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about some of the things that God has been stirring in our hearts this year. And Twila, you want to talk about what God's been doing in your year? You've had a big 2024.
It has been, but you know what? He keeps pulling me back to, and I think it's really good that this is the year that it's happening, in a chaotic election year and fear, inciting year, is just really back to the basics.
Yeah.
Back to what matters. How are you following me? How are you being shaped by me? What are the practices and the routines and the rhythms in your life? And you know that I was part of the launch team for Practicing the Way, and I got to read it on my little device on my phone at night. I would lay in bed and read on a tiny little screen. And so then when the book came out, I was like, I have to buy the real book because I need to highlight a lot of things. I want to read it again. It's been a very impactful book for me because it really is just calling out, I think, a lot of things that we maybe get wrong or oversimplify, but then also really just drawing me back to the basics, and just like all that really matters is following Jesus, my rabbi, and being his apprentice and doing what Jesus did, learning from my rabbi so that I can go and love other people the way that the rabbi loves. And so that has been really a big piece of it. And also, the thing that I keep in this kind of like back to the basics kind of thinking, and I keep saying this to my kids, is like, you guys, like, we have to keep our eyes above the surface, right? The enemy is making the surface just so noisy and busy and distracting, and we can just get filled with hate and divisiveness and all the things, right? Because he wants us to be distracted. And I keep saying we have to keep our eyes up. You guys, the whole reason we're even here is to be like co-laborers, we're part of God's story, and we get to help save the other people who don't know him yet and don't love him yet, because he loves them. And so that's the whole reason we're here, is to be part of the story and to work with him and help save the day for these other people that don't know him and don't love him yet. And so we just have to every morning get up and refocus. Okay, my job today is to be part of his story and be part of the hero squad to go save the other people. And so it's that simple, and yet it's not. It's not simple to do, but it is that simple. If we keep the mission simple, then maybe we don't get as distracted. So that's been my journey this year.
I mean, back to basics is back to the Great Commission and back to keeping your eyes on Jesus. Yeah. And That's what I hear. That's what I've seen. You've been doing this since the beginning of the year. Did you start, was the launch in January or December?
It was in December. I started it, I think, in December. And then I think the book came out like towards the end of January.
Yeah, I got it and read it like as soon as it came out. And it's had a huge impact on my year too. Just recalibrate.
Yeah.
Just resetting and again, this is about following Jesus. Jesus is the true hero of the story. Yeah. We know that, but we are empowered and equipped and we have gifts and talents and experiences so that are useful in advancing his kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah. So get on the right team and go do your work.
There's one. There's one.
Get on mission.
Get on mission. Exactly.
Get on mission.
What about you, Kimberly?
What God has been stirring in me? Well, a couple things. We have been learning a lot about women in ministry, and I've just been on this journey of wrestling with things that are difficult and table flipping.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that later, but I've just been chewing on a lot of things and realizing that me questioning some things that I've been taught is not like throwing God's word back in his face, but really an answer to prayer that I have been asking for wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's just God's kindness that he has been saying, hey, maybe think about this a different way, and that's just been the Holy Spirit stirring things in me. And so I don't have it all figured out, but I'm just like, I just want to cling to Jesus.
Yeah.
Like back to basics. And another thing that God has been stirring in me, I've just been really aware of spiritual warfare.
Right.
Lately, recently, and I don't know, when God brings something to your attention, it's like you see it here and you see it there and you see it everywhere.
There's like a thread and it connects all the dots.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm seeing spiritual warfare all around me. And I've just been wanting to go more on the offensive. I'm ready to fight and I'm on the right team and God is my warrior. And so, there is this spirit of divisiveness.
Yes.
And I'm seeing that is the enemy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it helps me to recognize that it's not personal against me, but there are a lot of situations that we've talked about, not on the podcast, that are very personal and affect me deeply. But I'm just so aware that there is this war happening all around me, and just God has opened my eyes a little bit to it, and it's just something that I'm working through right now.
Yeah.
So
I think that the spiritual warfare has come up because in 2016, you and I, we were battling for people in prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was intense.
Yep.
We were like, in that house that we were gathered at studying, a huge component of that. We were like on the floor. It was freezing cold in the house, but we were just like praying. Like it was, God did huge things.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about spiritual warfare and all of this, I am just taken back to our conversation last night at Book Club, Kimberly, at your house. We're reading Warrior of Eden together, and there was this question that we discussed last night. What makes you as spirited as a lion? And I really want you to read this little setup in the book about this question, and I think you'll love this, Twila. It was so good. We had such a good discussion about it, but it's kind of this quote from the book that's built around Paul in Romans 16, and he is in verses 6 and 7, he's in this closing and he's greeting all the people who he's worked closely with that he values. And he mentions, I'm just going to read the verses. It says, "Greet Mary, who worked very hard for you, and greet Andronicus and Junia, my fellow Jews who have been in prison with me. They are outstanding among the apostles, and they were in Christ before I was." And it's so interesting because what has happened in history is, for a long period of time, they tried to change the sex of Junia. They put like an S on the end of it and put it in a masculine form because there was no way that Paul could have referred to a woman as an apostle. It was a real table flipping kind of move of Paul. And, Paul's we're led to believe that he's into silencing women, and who you would never say that about a woman. And, that's been disproven and out, kind of uprooted. So now everybody's back to Junia was a woman, and she was an apostle, and Paul said she was outstanding. So she was a lion. She was a lioness. Mm-hmm. So, Kimberly, will you read that section in the book that I marked for you?
Yeah. Commenting on Romans 16:7, John Chrysostom, AD 347 to 407, Bishop of Constantinople, praised Junia as an outstanding apostle. Greet Andronicus and Junia, who are outstanding among the apostles. To be an apostle is something great. But to be outstanding among the apostles, just think what a wonderful song of praise that is. They were outstanding on the basis of their works and virtuous actions. Indeed, how great the wisdom of this woman must have been that she was even deemed worthy of the title of apostle. Chrysostom also praised the service of other Christian women. Reflecting on Paul's greeting of Mary in Romans 16:6, he wrote, "A woman again is honored and proclaimed victorious. Again are we men put to shame, or rather we are not put to shame only, but have even an honor conferred upon us. For an honor we have, and that there are such women among us, but we are put to shame, and that we men are left so far behind them. For the women of those days were more spirited than lions."
Twila, I was watching your face when she read that.
It's so great.
It's so good.
It is so good.
And so we're sitting in that circle last night, and I won't say what everybody else said, but I will share what I said. I'm like, what makes me as spirited as a lion? And I said, it's my daughters. And one of them was in that room. She was sitting there on the couch with her best friend. We have all generations in that room, from a boomer to these Gen Z girls, and we're just in it, like really fighting for each other. And I thought, the women in this room, my daughters, Gen Z, the times that we live in, all of those things make me as spirited as a lion. Like, I am not going to be quiet. I am not going to be silenced, because my prayer when my girls were little was that they would be a part of the generation that would bring in the return of the King. And that's my prayer every day. Lord, let us be the women and men on the scene who will usher in the return of the King. And on a personal note, one of my friends who follows the table flipper like me and his table flipping ways, she recently put my name in a conversation where people had to address whether a woman could be an elder. And I know the outcome of that, and I knew it even when I was told by my friend who is the chairman of the elders that I had received a very high praise and a very, beautifully written recommendation. At the same time, he's like, you know where we are as a church. And I said, I do, but I want you to have the conversation. And I knew that we had this conversation on Sunday. Monday morning, I was praying for the men who would be in that room and all the other things that I pray about every day. And I was sitting in my chair that Twila, you're sitting in, with that window behind you, and I think I had entered in this contemplative time where I was just quiet, and there was this peck on the window, and I turned around, and there was this little female cardinal, and she's sitting on the windowsill, and she is singing and singing and singing, and my face was like inches from the window, and we're looking eye to eye, me and this female cardinal. And she's just singing and singing and singing. And I was like, gosh, girl, I'm trying to pray here. Like, what are you doing? And, you know, table flippers listening to this podcast, you know that birds are not really my thing. And so here I am interacting with this bird in this most precarious of ways. And we sat there for a few minutes looking eye to eye with her singing, and then she flew off. And I was like, that just felt like it meant something. And then you called, or I called you, or something happened, and you and I ended up in on a very long conversation, Twila. We had a lot of things to talk about. And I never came back to what that meant, or what maybe the Lord was trying to say. But the very next day, same thing, because it's my habit, that black chair, and I was sitting there praying and writing in my journal, and I looked out the other window in this room, and there was a female cardinal, and she was on my neighbor's roof. And I looked at her, and then she flew away. And the minute that bird flew away, I was taken back to the windowsill the day before. And I just heard the table flipper that I follow say, Julie, you are not a bird in a cage. And you're going to sing. You're free. You're free. You are a free daughter to sing. And I just was so like, Jesus, that was so personal. And it was so beautiful. And then it hit me that I had just read this summer, The Blue Parakeet. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how the book ends, with a bird being set free and singing. Because in that book, Dr. McKnight is talking about, you know, Paul and women and the whole thing. And that issue for me was settled years ago by another book that I read called Tell Her Story. Mm-hmm. We'll put all of these in the show notes. But even that day one of the days that I was reading, and the whole thing about women being elders and pastors, like, I called you. I called Twila on my walk, and I said, I don't care what anyone else says. This has changed for me. I no longer am in a complementarianism camp. Egalitarianism, that's my view on what the Lord says that women can do. And, you know, even before you guys came, I had a good conversation with my friend, and I said, listen, there's no bitterness in my heart. There's nothing. I don't need a title. I don't need a seat on a board. I'm actually on several boards right now. God has plenty of stuff for me to do, and I feel good about all of it. Mm-hmm. But I want you guys to wrestle through this conversation, because I'm going to be a warrior for my sisters. Because I think and that's something that I have told the Lord. When I stepped into chairing another board for a nonprofit, I said to the Lord, I will do this because I believe you've opened this door for me, and I am committed to holding the space of any room that you put me in. Mm-hmm. That I will stand my ground. Mm-hmm. And
can I say too, you just said, you know, you challenged your friend that you're talking to, like I want you all to continue to wrestle with this. And I think, you know what, that's really important as Jesus followers, that we continually wrestle with our faith and what it is that we believe and why and what does he want us to know about. I mean, you and I would not have gotten to where we are in 2024
no,
if we hadn't been willing to wrestle with things and go, oh, I don't know, God, what did you mean by that? Like, what is your view on this or that? Or, like, we have gotten to places that we've gotten to because we have been diligent and done the work.
Right.
And so as all Jesus followers, I think it's important that we all continually challenge and do the work of wrestling with things and saying, God, what is your truth? What do you mean by this? Like, what do you want me to know about this? What is your view on this? And I think that that's important. Like, that we're always doing due diligence and doing the work.
It's incredibly important, and it's something that really resonates deeply with me, and it's that I don't want any follower of Jesus to ever get boxed in and say, this is what I believed 15 years ago. This is the same thing that I believe. I don't remember who said it, but on another podcast, and he said, we should all be learning and growing where our views, Jesus is just getting bigger. The Bible is getting bigger. The doors open are getting bigger. Like, we don't just figure out theology. We don't read the Bible a couple of times and go like, okay, like this is what I believe on this subject, this subject, this subject, this subject. There's room to grow because we're never going to get to the end of.
We'll never get it all right.
Right.
And so we have to continually say, what am I getting wrong?
What am I getting wrong?
Show me what is right.
Yeah. So, when I think about what's next for Flourish, what's next for Philippine Tables, Philippians is next. That's what we're going to be starting in October. We're going to study, we're calling the study The House Church at Philippi and Beyond with the women who led there. In 2025, we hope to do a series on the Sermon on the Mount. I've been holding that one back. It's been on my to-do list for a while. And the other thing that is coming big that is something that's been on our agenda for over a year is mentoring and discipleship and building something. And I think the Lord is going to have us develop a curriculum called soundboards.
Okay. This is all new news to us. We're sitting going, wow, okay.
So
maybe you knew.
We're here. No, but we're here for it.
You are here for it.
Soundboards.
So that's what we're doing
great.
Because we are coming up on something in March. And I want you to talk about it, Twila, because
I'm so excited.
Talk about Gather.
Yeah. So Gather 25 is so exciting. And if you haven't heard about it, please go to their website and learn about it and get excited about it. The global church is going to gather.
All of us?
All of us.
All of
at
our
the
different
same
denominations?
time, in real time. And it is going to be amazing because it's never before been possible for all of us to gather, right? We couldn't all get on airplanes and go to the same place and have a church service. But because of where we are in history and time and technology, the global church, 2.5 billion believers, are invited to gather in real time. It'll be broadcast everywhere, translated into every major language. That's never been possible really before.
Live translated into over 100 languages.
Yeah.
Thank you, AI.
Every continent will be participating and represented there, and I'm so excited. I just can't imagine that even if only 2.5 million Christians gathered in real time and sought his face and worshiped and prayed and repented and asked to be commissioned out. How does that not move God's heart? How does he not pour his spirit out when even 2.5 million of the 2.5 billion, you know what I mean? I just think I think he is going to move and do big things, and I'm super excited about that. And I'm super excited for this next generation to get to see these things happen in their lifetime.
Yeah.
History, is being made. Prophecy is being fulfilled. It's amazing. And so I'm so excited about it. Obviously, get real excited.
We're all very super excited about it. We're all involved in this. We're all praying for it.
Yes.
You are kind of spearheading it at our local church, and we're on your team, and we're running with you, and we're so excited.
Yeah.
So today this podcast is releasing, but you look at our socials today because we're going to be posting about it.
Yeah.
It's going to come out in the Flipping Tables email that will come out today. And we just want you to save the date and start getting excited.
Yeah.
And say that you're in, that you want to do this.
Yeah.
Because
it is something you want to be a part of. I want my kids to be a part of it. Like,
Yeah.
this is history making.
Absolutely.
So,
oh my gosh. Well, so that's why soundboards is coming, because I think something that has to be in place is that we have to be ready to know how to share our faith.
Yeah.
Because, the church gathers, but then it's to be sent out.
Yeah.
This morning I was up at 5:30 praying with our sister and friend Donna, and we were praying for Gather like we do every month.
Yeah.
And sometimes you guys were able to join that, but it's pretty early. It's pretty early. I don't like to get up at 5:30, but I do because it's important. So anyway, this has been really, really fun to talk to you girls today, and I just love it. So I hope our listeners have enjoyed this episode. But we have to wrap up with our bright spots. So, Twila, do you have one?
I do. So I have a boy, he's a man now, Ashok, lives in India. I started sponsoring him. He was in an orphan home in India, and I started sponsoring him when I think he was like 6 years old. He's like 24 now.
Goodness.
And so we've written letters back and forth, all the things. And now he's, obviously out of the program. He's getting his master's in finance right now. And we had lost touch, and we reconnected the other day, and we just went messaging back and forth. And oh my gosh, it just made my heart so happy to see him all grown up, and he's still loving and serving Jesus in his local church. And it just made my heart so happy to be like, this kid, I've watched him grow up, and look how God has worked in his life and is using him, and that I got to be just a tiny little piece of his story, but like have always rooted for him like a mama, and prayed for him like a mama. And so that made my heart just so happy and so full.
So good.
Yeah.
Kimberly, what's your bright spot?
Well, we got new neighbors recently, and, meeting new people is difficult for me.
Our little introvert.
Yes, but Clark and I brought them a vase of flowers and like a card with our phone numbers just to welcome them to the neighborhood. And we brought it to the door, and she opened the door, and she was like, come in. And I was like, okay, I was just gonna drop these off, but I went in, and we stayed for like 30 minutes and just chatted and got to know each other. And later her husband came out, and he said, I just want you to know how happy it made my heart that you welcomed us to the neighborhood. And it just, it's like, the little things matter.
They do.
And it was a bright spot for me.
It's a bright spot for me too.
So good.
I love it. I love both of your bright spots. They're so good. Well, my bright spot happened last night, because back to that whole the lion thing. I can't even remember how it's said.
What makes you as spirited as lions?
Yes, and I answered that it was my girls. And when we finished book club, Lydia comes over and she gives me a hug, and she says, Mom, you did it. You taught us how to be spirited as lions. And I'm like, that's it. I could die knowing that I had been faithful to my God. And that it's such a bright spot to have her and Anna there. I've had them,
Yeah.
it's just so good. So, friends, I hope that this has helped you recalibrate and know us a little bit better, because we never lose sight of you at our table. You are in our prayers, and we think about you, and we think about long and hard the content that we're going to bring to you. And we want to study Philippians with you this fall. And we have some really exciting conversations coming up in the future that I think you're going to be really excited about. So until next time, keep following the table flipper and leave the table flipping to Jesus.